Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Shaka Hislop and Stevie Nicol here in the studio, and we've had some Friday night action to kick us off. It was Bournemouth against Manchester United. United looking to cement third place in the Premier League table. 2-2 it would finish. One thing we know is that Bournemouth have proven to be draw specialists this season. I think that's 15 now in 31 games. It was their fifth in a row anyway. But 2-2 it would finish, and a lot of decisions to get into. As we take a look at the table in the Premier League right now, Manchester United remaining in third, up against Bournemouth there in 10th as it stands right now. This game 4-4 as mentioned last time around, and another eventful meeting between the two. Hello Nedum, welcome into the show. Nedum Manu has been watching this game for us. I suppose we've got to get to some of the decisions here. Let's start with Manchester United not getting the penalty that they would have wanted before Bournemouth go up the other end and score. How did you see that? Because I know these two guys are divided on it.
Yeah, on this one, I think I'm going to go Team Xhaka. I think, yeah, there is like a level of contact as such, but for some reason, I just think Diallo's gone down probably a little bit too easy, in my opinion. I think in some ways, I'd want him to be stronger there. I think the tussling that they're going for feels pretty one-sided, and I personally, as I say, I don't think it's a foul. I think if that would have been given as a penalty, I think afterwards I'd have been looking back at it thinking that feels really, really soft. So in some ways, I'm glad they were able to play on. Yes, Truffert is sort of competing with him, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not fully sold on that. I don't think many United players are around him either because they didn't really complain too much. Like you say, Mateus Cunha there, you see Bruno Fernandez there. And if it was something that was more significant, I think they'd be more in line to be throwing their hands up and demanding something from the referee.
First of all, he's put his right hand on his chest and then he's put his left hand pulling his arm back as he's going past him. I'm not quite sure where you two figure this is not a foul. His right hand goes towards his chest, so he's leaning on his chest. Then his left hand goes on and grabs his arm, and then the right hand comes down and actually helps with the left arm to hold his arm as well. I'm sorry, I don't know what you two are looking at.
I just thought, listen, at first look in real time, it looked as though Ahmad just kind of felt the contact on his arm and spun, and it didn't feel like it was enough for the reaction that it was, that you got from Amad Diallo. And as a result, I'm kind of, while, yes, the replays suggest otherwise, replays do that in slow motion. And you see this contact, but in real speed, I'm just not sure that it was deserving of a penalty.
Okay, so that's that decision and how things turned up. Let's get to the red card.
I need to go and get these checked.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, but not just because of this, though.
Yeah,
we've kind of established that a long time.
The replay always makes it look well.
Let's get to the red card for Harry Maguire. Obviously, the day started off well for him. England call up, but it didn't end so well, Nedum. What did you make of this moment?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought this one was a penalty, and I think the red card's probably right because you can see the impact that it's had on Evan Nielsen, who at this stage is completely through on goal. So I can see why the referee would give that as a free kick, and from when the video assistant referee is going to look back at it, you can see the impact that it's had. And for Evan Nielsen, there's no benefit for him in that instance to be going down, like, you know, especially given the fact, you know, it's not as if he's their penalty taker. So I think that is the right decision. Obviously, the controversy is because it comes off the back of the Diallo one. But yeah, I think Harry Maguire in some ways is panicked in that situation, knowing that he's lost control of it. So I think that's a penalty, and I think the red card is probably the right outcome, unfortunately, for Harry.
Because there is going to be controversy here because of that decision, because it didn't go Ahmad's way, the other way, and then this one is given, and there didn't seem to be a second thought with this one. Yeah,
and rightly so. You know, if you're Manchester United, I do think you've been robbed. I think absolutely. The game, listen, Bruno Fernandez may have missed it, the goalie might have saved it. There's a lot of ifs and ands and buts, but let's be honest, there's probably 90% certainty that he was going to score and it would have been 2-0. And I think the game would have been done. So if I'm Manchester United, regardless of the Harry Maguire one, I think you feel really hard done by, big time.
That is Liverpool legend Stevie Nicol saying Manchester United was robbed.
Yeah, duly noted. That doesn't happen very often. Listen, I think there are key differences between the Ahmad one and the Evan Nielsen one. Evan Nielsen is round Harry Maguire. I'm not sure I would have given a red card. I don't think there's any doubt that was a penalty in my opinion. With Ahmad, he is kind of running across the top of the box and almost into cover for Bournemouth. Evan Nielsen is different. He's round the back of Harry Maguire, clean through on goal. So that's why I think they were interpreted differently. certainly in terms of giving the penalty or not, and certainly in terms of the red card, which again I think was a little harsh. Two players very close to each other. That happens. I don't think it's intentional and certainly not warranting of a red card for Maguire.
He's clean through, Shagger.
Yeah.
Evan Nielsen's clean through. He's going to score. It's a goal-scoring opportunity. There's no other decision the referee can make.
I think two players start in almost in the same position. Evan Nielsen spins off him. That kind of contact happens. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think it's meant to just bring Evan Nielsen down without any regard for anything else. I think it happens. It's a foul. It's in the box. It's a penalty. I have no argument about that at all. I don't think anybody should have any argument about that. I just wouldn't have given a red card in that situation.
Nedum, decisions aside, what's your takeaway from this game? What did you make of what you saw tonight?
To be honest, there were times where I was quite feeling Man United, thinking, yeah, they're in a good spot. You can see them almost locking up that third place position. But then that second half performance to me felt very different to the first half one. Obviously, the red card has its impact later in the game. But United went in at half-time having had 11 shots and they finished the game with 14. I think that in some ways is something that Carrick probably needs to take a look at, because yes, Bournemouth are, essentially the draw specialists as such, but I still believe United had enough to be able to go on the road and get that result. But I think at the moment we're starting to see that United at home versus United away, it's subtly different, and hopefully from their perspective isn't something that sort of stops them from getting to the place they should be going into the next season. It's
not going to be any type of setback for them today, is it?
I don't think so. When you look at Villa, who are closest to them, who I think are still 4 points back, albeit with a game in hand, more to the point, I just don't think Villa are playing as well as they were earlier in the season. I still have Manchester United as favourites to finish in that third spot.
100%. Yep. Don't see it. Plus Man United don't have Europe. Villa's still got Europe. Liverpool still got Europe. You can't trust Chelsea. So yeah, I don't see any way United, at the very worst, are not in the top four.
One of the big changes since then, obviously, Xabi Alonso no longer Real Madrid manager. Now Alvaro Arbeloa gets to take over the derby. Real Madrid in second in the table, 4 points back of leaders Barcelona. Atleti in fourth as it stands right now, 9 points back of Real Madrid. Alex Kirkland, our Madrid correspondent, joining us now. Nedum still with us. Let's get to the biggest talking points heading into the most recent meeting between these two then, if we can, Alex. Obviously, this is coming up between the two. We're hearing that we're going to be seeing Kylian Mbappe and perhaps Jude Bellingham too.
Yeah, both those players trained today, Kay, but I do think the circumstances of each are a little bit different. Of course, both of them travelled to Manchester in midweek, but Bellingham was there really just to support his teammates. He wasn't even wearing a tracksuit. Mbappe, of course, came off the bench and looked pretty sharp, I thought, in his time on the pitch. So in terms of the derby on Sunday, Mbappe, I think there's a chance that he starts because, like I say, he looked good in midweek. He's got some minutes. It's a possibility, I think. As for Jude Bellingham, I'd be amazed if he was in the starting 11 because he hasn't had any minutes at all. And to throw him straight back into the team, remember, of course, the context of this, what happened in that first derby at the Metropolitano earlier this season. Xabi Alonso rushed Jude Bellingham into the starting 11, back from an injury, and I think everyone accepted afterwards it was too soon. Bellingham didn't play well, the team didn't perform, and they got hammered. And so even though it's a new coach in Alvaro Arbeloa, I think that will be in everybody's minds in terms of whether Bellingham comes back into the starting 11. And I'm pretty convinced it's too soon for that. He might get some minutes off the bench.
So what are the expectations going into this match then, Alex, for both Arbeloa and Real Madrid right now, given the fact that it is the crosstown rival of Atleti and given that they are second in the table right now?
Yeah, the mood is pretty good after what happened against City. That's the Champions League, of course, a different competition. But I think that the feeling is that, yeah, Arbeloa's team is starting to come together. There's sort of a clearer identity of the way that the team are going to play. They look a bit more solid in defence, in midfield, with basically a 4-4-2. Of course, the system may well change with the likes of Mbappe coming back into the team and later on with Bellingham as well. But like I said, there's a feeling of confidence and also, looking out for revenge in terms of what happened in the Metropolitano earlier this season, because that was a real blow to Xabi Alonso, one of the first big kind of negatives in his reign, that sort of caused a lot of doubts, I think, about him and his long-term future. So they want to forget that. They want revenge for that. Atletico, we've seen they are capable on their day, okay, more at home than away from home, of beating the very best, of beating Real Madrid, of beating Barcelona, of getting big results in in Europe as well. So they are a serious opponent. I think it's going to be, I think it's hard to call, but in the fact that it's here at the Bernabeu, given that's the case, Real Madrid, I think, are always favourites.
All right, let's get into one of the articles that's popped up on our website, LALIGA Confidential. ESPN spoke to 30 players in Spain's top flight, and they've picked out some of the questions that they put to them. The full article is over on ESPNFC.com, but we wanted to bring two of them up. The first of them is, if you ran a team, who would be your first signing? 30% go with Mbappe, 30% go with Pedri. It's 16.6% with Lamine Yamal, and 6% down there with Haaland. The drop-off there for Lamine Yamal, who obviously is starring and stunning every week, has been one of the talking points, certainly among us and the production team. Is that a surprise to you, Nadem, to see Lamine Yamal drop off there with the likes of Mbappe and Pedri up where they are?
That's a good question. I'm going to say no for now, because I think with Lamine Yamal, as an 18-year-old, I think he is now, he's obviously racking up really good minutes, scoring a ton of goals, but the goals aren't the same as like a Kylian Mbappe. And then as far as a Pedri perspective goes, so many people believe, you know, he's one of the best footballers, not just in Spain, but around the world. So you could have somebody that dictates style of play in Pedri and somebody who's going to be scoring 30 to 50 goals a season in Mbappe, and, you know, somebody who's approaching their peak as such. So for right now, in some ways, I do get it. It's not to say that Yamal doesn't have necessarily the same sort of influence and, you know, a really, really bright future. It could be brighter than, say, these other two. But in this particular moment, you know, I think I do get it. I think you see the potential in one, but you almost see in some ways something closer to the finished article with the other two. So, as I say, I think I get it.
He thinks you get it. Do you get it, Shaka?
Listen, I do in a sense. I'll be honest. I think the drop off from 30% to 16.6 or whatever it is to Lamine Yamal is more than I would expected, given how good Lamine Yamal has been. And we've kind of speculated about if Barcelona were to kind of run away with things this season, that Lamine Yamal, the Ballon d'Or, would be his. But in terms of building a team, the cliche is you build up the spine. Your goalkeeper, your two centre-backs, that central midfielder, your centre-forward. And I think that's why you see Pedri and Kylian Mbappe favoured as highly as they are. They're straight up the spine. So when you're talking about first picks, that's kind of where you go. Of course, Lamine Yamal works well away from the spine.
Yeah, Stevie's a bit more cynical about this, because I asked him beforehand, I said, does this come down to us on the outside seeing it as why Lamine Yamal is so low down because we don't play? And is this like a player thing where they think, oh, it's a maturer player, it's a player who's been around a bit longer? And he's like, no, it's to do with where your mates play.
I mean, your mate, or... I mean, it depends on who they spoke to. How many people at Real Madrid are going to pick Lamine Yamal? Because they know that if they pick Lamine Yamal, it's going to go against Mbappe. So that's probably why you get such a big drop-off. So it's really not...
Yeah, but Pedri's there.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying it depends who you ask. If you ask Barcelona players, they're not going to go for Mbappe, are they? Because that'll affect Pedri or Yamal.
Who would you pick, Stevie, in La Liga? Who would be your first signing?
I would pick Yamal right now. Yeah, I would pick Yamal right now.
Yeah, completely unbiased as well. Yeah. Alex, what do you... Are you involved in this, Alex?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I'd urge people to read the whole piece as well, because we all have our opinions, but when it's the players who play with these guys out on the pitch or against these guys out on the pitch, it does give it a different dimension. In terms of the percentages, bear in mind, I think it was 30 anonymous players. So as a percentage, you know, the drop-off down to Lamine sounds big, but you're only talking about a handful of players there being the difference. Yeah, I think, as Nedum says, Mbappe guarantees goals. Pedri is at the heart of the team. And in terms of the wording, the phrasing of the question, it's if you run a club, if you run a team, which one player are you bringing in? And yeah, it's probably the player you're going to build the team around. All
right, let me stick with you, Alex, because the other one we wanted to pick out, because there are a few obviously in the article, is which coach is the most annoying on the sideline? Overwhelmingly, Diego Simeone with 43%, but it is Jose Bordalas after that with 23%. Probably no surprises with these two here, right?
No surprise at all. Diego Simeone is the coach who spends the most time outside his technical area of any coach I've ever seen. And that's even given the fact that the technical area of the Metropolitano is the biggest of any stadium in Spain by far. He's got loads of space there. He still spends half his time outside him. And he is the classic coach who spends the entire I'll be watching him a lot of the time when I'm there at the games. The entire game, gesticulating and shouting, even though he must know perfectly well the players can't hear half of what he's saying or half of the instructions that he's trying to give, and yet he's still at it non-stop right the way through, in the ear of the fourth official, the assistant referee. I think it's about that. In terms of Bordalas, I've got to say, I think for him and Getafe, that's more about the style of the team, of the way that Getafe play and their antics on the pitch, as much as Bordalas' antics on the touchline.
Yeah, and even though Stevie's definitely not Diego Simeone or Atleti's #1 fan, I think that's been well documented here. When we went through some of the things that Bordalas does, you were like, maybe it would be him.
Initially, I was like, oh, Simeone, no danger. And then I started thinking about some of the stuff that Bordalas had done. He even makes Simeone look like a wee angel sometimes. So I think I'll go for Bordalas, but it's tight.
But it's tight. Where are you going, Checker?
Well, the first thing that kind of caught my eye is the 10% with no comment. That's probably Atletico Madrid players. So we know exactly what percentage of players were Atletico Madrid players in that. Listen, each manager has a style. They're frustrating. I know, especially as both an opposing player and more to the point, if you're playing for one of those managers, as long as you get results, you take them and you don't vote when they drop the list on your table.
Yes, we urge everyone to read that article, as Alex said, because it is fascinating. ESPN.com to catch up with what's going on in La Liga Confidential. But while we are here in La Liga, we want to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold not being called up by Thomas Tuchel for the England squad, even though 35 players have been picked. Nedum, is this a surprise to you? This is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's at Real Madrid. He's playing for Real Madrid. And yet he's not deemed to be part of the England squad right now for Thomas Tuchel.
To be honest, given how big the squad was, I think I was the next name on the list. That's how big it is for me. 35 people, it's ridiculous. And I think, in my perspective, Alexander-Arnold should probably look at that and take that as a sign. Like, I don't know what the conversation's like between the two of them, but with Reece James being out as well, Alexander-Arnold not making that squad, to me, in some ways, is quite alarming. And it's not to say that just because he plays for Real Madrid, he should make an England squad, because Tuchel clearly has his vision. Other managers have had their vision as well. But I think for the talent that he has, I guess it's a skill set that just no manager seems to be that interested in, which is very strange in my opinion, because we did see him play the last Euros, at times in midfield as well, if memory serves me right. So yes, it's disappointing. I think it'd be very hard from a pride and ego standpoint to see everyone else in England getting selected and you not. But I suppose there's still time for him to maybe finish the season with a La Liga title, maybe finish with some cup success as well, perhaps in the Champions League, and basically stick it to Tuchel and say, well, how can you not pick me, given how great I've been in this back half of the season?
What do you think about his omission, Stevie?
I don't think it's a surprise. In terms of players being picked on form, then absolutely Trent Alexander shouldn't be in it. He hasn't played that much because of that bad injury he had. And then when he has played, from a defensive point of view, which even Tuchel brings up, he has been like a novice. He's looked like a rookie. And so it's not a shock. The one reason I would have taken Trent Alexander-Arnold is in case there's injuries. You basically got Livramento and Reece James. And Reece James has got some injury problems. And so to have Trent in and around it, so that if something happens towards the end of the season and you're struggling, because he's brought Jed Spence in.
Jed Spence's in.
In my opinion, I'm sorry, as bad a defender as Trent is, I would much rather have Trent playing than Jed Spence. So I think from a point of view of, just covering your back, that's why I would have brought Trent in. But if it's down to what you've been doing on the field, then absolutely he doesn't deserve to be anywhere near the squad.
He said, Thomas Tuchel said, it's a tough decision. Trent's a big name, a huge talent with an impressive career. I know what he can offer, but I've opted for others. Is there any type of message in that to Trent?
No, I'm not sure that there's a message in there, other than a lot of these things that Stevie is touching on. And now Reece James, again, kind of not quite sure, given his injuries and what he's going through at the moment. When he's back, his fitness going into the World Cup. My thing with Trent, and I'm with Steve, I was not at all surprised. My thing with taking a squad into the World Cup is you've got to be able to defend. You've got to have a strong defensive unit. I think that's where successes are built in international football, as opposed to domestic football, and which is where is Trent's weakest spot, having to defend and having to be disciplined in that regard. Now, maybe you find yourself behind and you want that additional threat going forward in whatever game it may be, and that's when I think Trent can play a role. But as of right now, quite clearly Tuchel isn't thinking that way. Defensively, he can be a little bit of a liability in a tournament such as the World Cup. I'm not sure how you afford that.
What's the viewpoint from the Spanish capital on this, Alex?
I think there's more surprise back home in England than there is here, because those of us who've watched Trent for Madrid all season, he just hasn't performed for Real Madrid yet, really. As the guy said, he spent the first half of the season mostly injured. Yes, he's come into the team basically since Christmas, and right now he's the first choice right back. But he's still not playing particularly well. He's still had more games, I think, where he's been shown up defensively. There was maybe one performance where he had a really good game going forward and put a couple of really good balls into the box and created goals, but that's about it. He just hasn't delivered. Maybe he will between now and the end of the season. Like I say, he's ahead of Dani Carvajal for the right back spot for Real Madrid right now. But so far, he hasn't done it, and so I can understand the decision that Tuchel's made, because yes, it's a surprise based on the name and on the talent, but in terms of performance, and look, it's March now. Most of the season has come and gone, and he still hasn't done it here.
Nadim?
Yeah, so this is the thing with Thomas Tuchel. I think in some ways he did deliver a message with what he said, because he's basically tried to make sure that he addresses everything that's been before. But in some ways he says, I just don't fancy you. I just do not fancy you in this team at all, because he says, oh, he's so talented. He's so successful. He's done this, he's done that. But he didn't say anything about how he's playing right now. And even his skill set, maybe Tuchel just doesn't like it, because there are people in this England squad, if you look at the likes of John Stones, Phil Foden, for example, who aren't playing week in, week out for Man City, but clearly he likes something about them as profile of players, which is why they've been selected. And obviously, as we've said, the squad is massive. But he's still seen something in them that he likes. Even Jude Bellingham being in the squad without really playing any significant minutes in this last month or so. Again, it's something about him that he likes. And I think for Alexander-Arnold, in reality, like, the manager essentially just doesn't like his style of play. Because if he did, you can't, for example, hang his hat on the excuse, oh, he's not playing well, or he's not done this, he's not done that. Because there are players in that England squad who haven't been playing well, and some England players who haven't been playing. So I think in some ways he's just shown him basically this is the door, and he's great, but he's just not great for me.
Here's how things are looking in the Premier League as we look ahead to Brighton against Liverpool on Saturday and Everton against Chelsea. You'll remember that yesterday Stevie said Liverpool are absolutely back. After what we saw in the Champions League. Obviously, I'm kidding here. What he really said was he'll make the decision on that comment after this Brighton game. So these are the predictions of the panel. Shaka, Nadim and myself saying that Liverpool are going to win this one, but Dan Thomas and Stevie Nicol saying it's going to be 2-2. Why, Stevie?
Well, Liverpool can't keep a clean sheet, other than the other night, which was a big surprise, let's be honest.
Can't keep 2 clean sheets in a row.
Yeah,
let's go for that.
So the fact that they kept a clean sheet means there's no way possible they're going to keep a clean sheet against Brighton.
They can't follow up a big win, as Virgil van Dijk's told us.
And considering the amount of chances they made the other night and the previous games, they don't take enough percentage of the chances that they do create. So that's why I've gone for 2-2. I think they'll score twice. Obviously, there's no more Salah. Don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
No, Alisson.
But yeah, that's why I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet, and I don't see them scoring 3, 4 and 5 goals.
Right, so why didn't you answer that Liverpool are absolutely not back, instead of telling me that it will take till after the Brighton game to decide, when you've decided that the Brighton game is going to be a draw anyway?
Say that again.
Yesterday, when I said Liverpool are back, you said, ask me that question again after the Brighton game. But if you think it's going to be a draw, why didn't you just answer me anyway? You're not going to say they're back after the 2-2 draw, are you?
I don't listen. After you absolutely pummel somebody in Champions League, then it's a little harsh to turn around and say absolutely 100% not, because at some stage,
so you were just
most teams,
time.
At some stage, most teams can turn the corner. And so that's why I said, ask me after Brighton. Because if Liverpool batter Brighton and beat them 4-0 and play the way they did and create the chances and close the ball down and have the energy they had in the game against Galatasaray, then I will turn around and say, well, you know what, I think you might be right, they might be back. So that's why I said, ask me after the game.
All right, but it's going to be a draw.
I think it'll be a draw, yeah.
The other game that we wanted to talk about, well, get your prediction on, was Everton against Chelsea. Stevie's a little bit more optimistic for Chelsea here. However, Nadim's got a 2-2 draw. Myself, Dan and Shaka have all gone for a 1-1 draw. So, Stevie, I'm going to have to go back to you.
Yeah.
You're the only person here that's saying that there is going to be a winner, and it's going to be Chelsea.
Everton can't buy a win, a performance, you name it. What's the name of the stadium? Dickenfield?
Yeah,
What is it?
we'll go with that.
Yeah, close enough.
Hill Dickinson.
Hill Dickinson. There you go. Dickenfield. That was close. Hill Dickinson. I nearly said Goodison enough. No, had it been a Goodison, I might be
It would have been a completely different story. It's all
Correct.
about the name change.
But right, Everton can't buy anything at home. So, yeah, that's why I think Chelsea will win the game.
All right. Yesterday, seeing as though we're bringing up some things that happened yesterday, we had Enzo Fernandez's quote on his future after the PSG game when he said, "I don't know. My focus is here for now. We have 8 Premier League matches to play and the FA Cup, then the World Cup coming up. So we'll see after that." Now, yesterday we talked about being lost in translation. We're seeing different translations across the board as well on what he said. I don't think it still changed your mind that it wasn't that big a deal, though, right, Shaka?
I'm still saying no, it wasn't that big a deal. And because it's difficult asking a player such a question right after a game, especially a loss, as heavy a loss, especially over the aggregate, as Chelsea suffered against PSG. That is dangerous on its own, and then you put into perspective Enzo Fernandez and his time at Stamford Bridge, signed by Pochettino. He's gone on after a year. Maresca comes in, and then he's gone on unexpectedly, and then Liam Rosinha comes in, and now you have this. So all that kind of, given his journey, given the moment, I don't want to read too much into what was said.
It wasn't a bad answer.
OK, we've got another answer for you since then.
Well, the guy went straight at him and said, "Can you guarantee you'll be at Chelsea next year?" Nobody's going to turn around and guarantee anything.
When you've got a long-term contract?
It doesn't matter. When somebody goes straight in your face with a microphone and says, "Can you guarantee you're going to be here next year?" I thought he just batted it away pretty well.
So
he said, "We've got 8 games left. We got the World Cup coming up. And right now, I'm concentrating on being here." I don't see the problem.
OK, so before we go to Nadim on what he thinks about this, there was another quote after this game with another broadcaster. He was asked here what happened before and after Maresca's departure. And he said, "We had an identity. He gave us an order, even though, as is the way of football, sometimes it's good and bad. Obviously, his departure hurt us a lot, especially in the middle of the season." He goes on to say it cuts everything short, but he's talking here about having a clear identity. So that doesn't change your opinion at all on what he was trying to get across after the game?
No, not at all.
You don't think there's anything towards
not at all.
here?
All he's doing is answering a question about Maresca and how surprised he was. And what he says makes absolute sense.
About not having a clear identity now?
No, see, you're jumping into your journalist mode here. Try to get... That's exactly what people do with, like, say, Enzo Fernandez. Jumping on people, hoping they slip up. He's not slipping up at all. All he's saying is that under Maresca, the amount of time they spent with the Club World Cup and then the start of the season, that he obviously feels as though something was gone. They were doing something. They were organised. They knew what they were about. And all of a sudden, the legs are taken away in the middle of the season, and you're starting again with a new manager. And regardless of how close and the way he thinks about the game with the manager previously, every manager does things slightly different. So I think people are just looking into this and trying to find something that I don't think is there.
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan.
Dan.
Are you staying with Stevie on this still?
I'm sticking with Stevie. As I say, I think it's born out of frustrations, and it's just a poor time to try and articulate anything about the game when you've just been handily beaten.
OK, Nadim, where do you stand on these comments from Enzo after the game?
So on this occasion, I'm going to go against the fellas, and somehow I'm on the side of Dan Thomas, because I believe
of all the people.
I know, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Because Enzo Fernandez, in those 2 interviews or clips, all the bits that you've seen there, He could also just have lied or said nothing at all. I think the fact that he's gone out and tried to be honest is like commendable to him, but then it leaves it open to interpretation. For example, after the game against PSG, you know, he's talking about the facts of we've got 8 games left, the fact that it's the FA Cup, the fact that it's the World Cup. But then he didn't need to finish it with said, but after that, we'll see. Because that's the question mark which the sort of reporter was seeking. And then in the Maresca sacking one, you know, unfortunately, you know, I think I've had 14 managers in my 16-year career, so maybe once or twice I've had to speak about managers leaving. And I think, again, it'd be very easy to sort of almost accept the move without showing the sort of negative that come with it, because some of those things, in my opinion, are best said almost in private or said to people who aren't going to potentially run with it and make of it whatever he will. And Enzo Fernandez he's not the oldest player, but he's a very experienced player, a very successful player, especially for his national team. So in my mind, I think he's probably been a bit too honest and said a bit too much, and that honesty has cast a little bit of doubt, and it's the sort of food that, you know, the likes of Dan Thomas will just pick up on straight away and run with for as long as possible. So yeah, I think he could have said less and probably should have.
But he could very easily have been a real good friend with Maresca. He might have really liked Maresca. The two of them might have got on really well.
You don't think
So he's talking,
using the term
everything he
clear
said
identity, though, is going to be picked up?
Everything he said there is nice things about Maresca.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the problem with that?
Because I suppose Rossini's under the spotlight right now, and so to say that your former coach had a clear identity...
See, now you're getting into the realms of, well, players need to know not to say anything about their former manager.
They do,
because
though,
they've got
don't
the
they?
new
They know
manager.
it's going to be picked apart.
You're talking about football players here. Football players in general. 90% of what goes on is about them and how it affects them. And
what
they're
their future
doing,
might look
and
like.
what they're doing. Do you think he's sitting after he said that when, oh, I never mentioned the new manager. Maybe I should have said this. No, he just said some nice things about Maresca. But again, you want to take it as if he's slagging Rossini off.
Didn't say that. I was just putting it to you.
She actually definitely said that.
Just asking the question.
You said.
Doing my job and asking the question. You said. Well, that was one example of how players can speak after being asked things. There was another example as well of players speaking after being asked things after a game. This is Cristian Romero speaking about his future this week. He said, "My focus is on Spurs and try to help in this bad situation. This is the priority. Then after we will see. But now I want to recover energy and help Spurs." Is that a better way to handle it, or is it the
you tell me.
same old?
Apparently you're the executioner here, slicing and dicing.
Nadim, what are we thinking here?
Slicing people up for opening their mouth.
To be honest, as far as this season goes, it seems like every time after Romero says something, you know, something bad happens. So hope for his sake and Spurs' sake that nothing too drastic happens this weekend. But again, it's that sort of like question mark about, you know, we'll see. This is my focus for now, but we'll see. And obviously, as a player, it can be tough when somebody's asking you a question about your future. But again, you could just refuse to answer or just not necessarily leave it in that line, because yeah, it's great. The first part's terrific. If you were somebody that's like giving him guidance, terrific. He's focused on this. It's a tough situation. We're doing the best that we can, but we will see. And all of a sudden, everything that came before doesn't matter anymore. But for Romero, as I say, the last time I saw him speaking and putting stuff out on social media, then got a red card and a 4-game ban against United. So yeah, I suppose all eyes on him again this weekend.
Listen, I think as answers go, Romero gave as good an answer as you can hope for. But I'm with Nadim. Romero has given good answers to Spurs' struggles all season long. He just hasn't backed it up on the pitch. And at times, he hasn't been available to back it up on the pitch. And I think that's the difference here. And there's two very different contexts between Enzo Fernandez and Cristian Romero. In that Enzo Fernandez, Chelsea just got, as I said, humbled by a team that they beat this summer to win the Club World Cup. Spurs have struggled and actually made a better fist of certainly the second leg against Atletico Madrid than anybody, I was expecting. So it's a very different mindset. And again, you ask players questions immediately after games. You're not quite sure what you're going to get because of the emotion of the game. And again, the emotions of those two situations were absolutely contrasting. And so as a result, you see fairly contrasting responses. Or responses that Kay kind of...
Dan, excuse me.
Dan pummels.
Here's the thing. I always say you should never answer the question anyway. I always say it. Yeah, tell them what you want them to know and nothing else. But at the same time, football players don't have PhDs in English language, and particularly foreigners. So when a foreigner says something like that, you have to give them some sort of
But a lot of the
leeway.
time he's speaking to the broadcasters in his native language that then is being translated.
Right, as I said, but whatever language, maybe it's not the English PhD language, it's Spanish or whatever it is. You know, football players are not particularly brilliant at speaking, let's be honest, when they're playing. That's for sure.
But isn't it easy to say, I don't want to talk about my future right now, our focus is on the next game?
Yeah.
Well, it should be, right? But, as Shaka rightly said, you've just got pummeled at home, you've just got knocked out of the Champions League and somebody's shoving a microphone in your face. And listen to me, I did it when I was coaching, and I all kept saying you don't answer the question, but sometimes when you're riled up and you're disappointed or whatever it is, depending on where you are emotionally, sometimes you say the wrong thing. So I think we should give them a little bit of leeway.
All right, we will. Sorry about that. I'll turn back into Kay now. Okay.
Hold on, it's not that big a difference.
Let's move on to this weekend. It's Arsenal against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup final as we take a look at the odds here. But we have heard from both managers ahead of it, both Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta, discussing their goalkeeper strategies for this game.
Can I just ask about the goalkeeper as well? Will James Trafford play on Sunday?
Yeah,
And how big a moment is that for him?
for the team. For the team, it's a big moment.
Hi, Pep. Just to follow on there, James said a few weeks ago that he was a little bit disappointed, or he hadn't been expecting things to work out how they have done. What did you think of those comments? And
Good. Nothing to say. Players can be happy and happy. It is what it is. So, they have to be here, do the best what they do, and after we'll see what happens at the end of the season. So, the important is that they have to be ready.
and have you been pleased with James's attitude this season?
Sorry?
Have you been pleased with James's attitude since he
Beyond,
returned?
yeah.
Kepa has started all your cup games in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. Will he keep his place? Will he start?
We will see how everybody's tomorrow and make the decision.
Okay. Just because Pep says that James Trafford is starting.
Good try.
I'm sure you're aware of that, yeah.
All right, reactions there from you, CV.
I understand that because of the size of the squads now, it seems like everybody's being nice and the guy who's played all the games plays in the final. However, I come from an era where you play your best team. When you're in a cup final, you play the best team, the team that has the best opportunity to win the game. You know, you're not playing for one guy, the goalkeeper. You're playing for everybody in the squad, all the players, all the fans, the owners, everything else. It's not about keeping one guy happy, because that's what it's turning into. So, in my opinion, you play the best team. And it's just unfortunate that if you're the goalkeeper and you've played all the games leading up to the final, it's just unfortunate. So
What about the goalkeeper?
So, no, I think you do what you think is right for you, is right for the team, and certainly the way you manage. Now, while this is exactly what Pep Guardiola has done throughout his managerial career. Arrived at Barcelona, Ter Stegen played in the Champions League, Claudio Bravo played in the league. And that happened all season throughout. As it happens, they won them both. So that is how Pep kind of uses his goalkeepers or his substitute goalkeepers and has throughout his career. Now, who am I to question Pep in doing that? But as we were discussing yesterday, you had a Carlo Ancelotti who played Andre Lunin when Courtois was injured, played Andre Lunin, excuse me, and then come the Champions League final, last couple of games in the season, went with Courtois and played Courtois in the final despite Lunin playing every round before that. Who am I to question Carlo Ancelotti? So they're just two very different approaches by sitting in those two examples. Two of the most successful managers in the history of the game. Do what you feel is right for you. Personally, if I play in the cup games, even if I'm not playing in league games and we get all the way to the cup final, I also want to play in the cup final. But that's me, and that's a pretty selfish approach as a player. As every player is selfish similarly. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's what you do as manager that fits your team, your squad, the people that you have around you.
Depends on the scoreline, doesn't it? Whether it's right or
Scoreline?
wrong. Well, it depends on whether they win or lose. The goalkeeper throws one in and they lose the game 1-0, then it depends on the result. If you win the game, like you're saying with Barcelona, you won the Champions League, doing that, well, you're vindicated because you won.
The
problem is if somebody throws one in.
Pep has done this his entire career, and to your point, results do kind of dictate the narrative.
Yeah.
Similarly, if Ancelotti had played Courtois and Courtois threw one in, then the discussion as well. Lunin play all the games, he's been playing well, stick with him. That's, again, as managers, you live and die by results, but you go into those games doing what you trust, understanding what you believe in the game and utilising that.
As the keeper, though, how do you take it? Is it something you ask about, or is it something you just have to accept?
You have to accept. And to the question that was put to Pep Guardiola, James Trafford quite clearly and said that he's not been happy with the role he's played or lack of playing time that he's had. But at the same time, you kind of sympathise. Edison was sold and moved on. James Trafford was brought in as his replacement. He probably arrived and was sold coming to the Etihad as being Pep Guardiola's number one, given the fact that Edison was now moved on. And then all of a sudden, an opportunity to sign Donnarumma kind of pops up. And that doesn't happen very often. Donnarumma, one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. Manchester City take that option. And as a result, James Trafford finds himself as second fiddle and really questioning his future, questioning what he was told a few months, and understandably wanting to know what's next for him. He's an incredibly talented goalkeeper. Earlier in the show, we were talking about Thomas Tuchel naming this England squad. Trafford probably figures that he needs to be a part of that squad, especially as we talk about succession and who's to come next. So from a Trafford perspective, it started on such a high, and well, we're 9 months in? He's probably really questioning a lot of those decisions, and understandably so.
Nadim?
No, I think this is one of those things that's special about football. I think there's no right or wrong answer, but one thing that the guys have sort of revealed there is that we'll look at the result and we'll sort of work backwards. But I think Xhaka's laid out a really interesting case from both sides of things, with Guardiola, who makes that change and sticks with it, but an Ancelotti who gets towards the end and then makes changes, like Steve would have done as a coach. But then Xhaka's also talking about, well, his perspective, if he was the goalkeeper that was in Trafford's position or Kepa's position, you'd be, not selfishly, you'd be hoping to play in the final because you've helped your team earn the right to be there. And you, in some ways, will have a point to prove, as is the case with James Trafford on Sunday, if he actually does play. Because he will believe that he's good enough to be playing week in, week out. No matter who is in front of him right now, he will believe that he's good enough. He's being selected for England. Tuchel really likes him. He's so much praise before. He was bought for a certain reason, and now he's not playing. So as he steps out there on the field on Sunday, he'll want this to be one of the best games of his entire career, to almost show the manager, this is who I am. This is why I should be playing in these big games. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And I think to talk about the other side as well, Mikel Arteta gives nothing away to anyone ever. Any person that thinks they're going to get any info from Arteta in a press conference, you're not having it. You could have a report on a Thursday that somebody's leg's been broken, and Arteta be like, yeah, we'll see what he's like in training on Saturday before we make a decision on Sunday. That is exactly who he is. And that's the way that he operates his ship, which is very different to other people. But again, it's the beauty of football. So many different ways to do it, and nothing guarantees success, and nothing is always going to lead to failure.
Now, unfortunately, Nadim, you are going to have to give something away here. Who have you got winning it?
I think I can get it.
Well, okay, thank you very much for this. Okay, this, believe it or not, as a City fan and former City player, I'm not going to take Arsenal, but logically, I would suggest them. Emotionally, I cannot do that, Kay. So I'm going for a Man City win, even though they've had the week from hell so far. the Sunday, we're going to see this as the start of a beautiful future for Manchester City, and they're going to win in the cup final against Arsenal. And then who knows what happens after the international break, but it starts with a win on Sunday. I'm looking forward to celebrating that. And if they don't win, please don't contact me for at least a week, okay? Thank you very much.
We've already seen your true colours now, Nadem. We get it. Yes, that is coming up. But of course, here on ESPN Plus, we still have the FA Cup to enjoy. We're at the quarter-final stage, and April 4th, things get back underway. Man City against Liverpool, Nadem against Stevie. We've got Chelsea against Port Vale, Southampton against Arsenal, and on April 5th, West Ham, Shaka against Leeds. Football W, check it out.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, we should be. Bringing it. Yeah. But you've said it now, so that's it. You did well. Shaka didn't, nominate himself for that.
No, I did.
Volunteered Stevie, so we'll bring that up soon. That will do it for the latest edition of ESPN FC.
get
Stick
some
around.
lessons.
Nadem's back. These guys are going to answer your questions on Extra Time. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Nadem is joining us. We've got Shaka and Stevie here in the studio. Are you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Call me Dan Thomas today, didn't you? No need. All right.
You're a bit snippy.
Craig Burley has actually put a question in to Extra Time.
What?
Tonight's choice of attire is all he's. Who do you think that same that?
Yeah. What's he trying to say, Stevie?
No idea. I've no idea. I mean, let's be honest, he's not exactly Mr. Fashion, is he? I mean, all he's doing is waiting. He's waiting for Kieran to come up with another get out so he can go and buy some gear.
Craig. More questions coming from Craig. Come on. All right. Jackie Hislop's credit card debt's in. For all, what are all your thoughts on the idea of Bruno Fernandez being the front runner for the PFA and the criticism that he's only playing once a week? He's second favourite behind Declan Rice.
To win the PFA Player of the Year, I'll assume?
Yes. So should he be?
I'm okay with it.
They'll have voted already, won't they?
Okay, now Nadem's okay with it. Nadem, tell us why.
They've already voted.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I think they would have voted earlier this month, perhaps. But I'm okay with it because at the end of the day, it's your peers and like people who are voting for it domestically in the league. They've only played against him realistically in the league, and they're seeing what they're seeing in the one competition that they do share with him. So whether he's played 60 games or he's going to be playing 38, you can only go off what you've seen in the competition that you're all involved in. So I think if he was to win it, I'm very much at peace with it. I think the Declan Rice one, he has obviously had a really good season, but Fernandez is possibly having one of his best seasons. So as a consequence, yeah, I think if he was to win it, it's fine. 38 league games in a season. This is the PFA League Award, so let him have it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem with Bruno Fernandes winning.
What was that face?
Well, first of all, the face is, I've never been a fan of the PFA Awards.
Right.
I've kind of said that ever since I was playing. I thought...
Bet you went to the parties though, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Of course you do.
Why shouldn't I? So I've never been a fan of the awards themselves. Anyway, but to this award, well, okay, you can make the argument that Bruno Fernandes is having the season of his career. Fine. You could say that Declan Rice maybe isn't. But Arsenal aren't winning quadruple. So it's a good thing he isn't. So I just think it's two different bars in terms of measuring Bruno Fernandez's importance to Manchester United, to Declan Rice's to Arsenal. I'd have Declan Rice.
All right, so the next question, and I've got some of the reaction after the United game today. It says, for all, was that foul on Ahmad a second penalty for United? So there was 26 seconds between the no penalty incident and then the ball in the back of the net. So let's see. Bruno Fernandez says we don't get a penalty and they get one. That's more or less the same as Ahmad. Michael Carrick says it's as obvious as you can get. You've already given one, so to not give the other one, it's clear that's what he believes is a penalty to start with, then the second one has to be. I don't understand how you can't give that. So it's clear if that's what he believes is a penalty to start with. Rio Ferdinand, refereeing decisions in the Premier League are getting worse day by day. Ahmad was brought down with both hands, but no penalty was given. A few minutes later, Harry Maguire was sent off for a similar incident and a penalty was awarded. Wayne Rooney. Amad Diallo was fouled, but the referee ignored it. Maguire's foul wasn't as visible as Ahmad's, but it was given as a straight red card and a penalty.
Can I just say, I thought Ahmad's was a penalty. Then during the show, all of a sudden, it was like, well, Shaka didn't think it was a penalty, so I just had to kind of go with it. Oh. So I was like, all right.
I've got in my notes, Stevie says yes, Shaka says no.
No, so on first look, when we were watching, as I said, first look, I didn't think it was a penalty. But then I saw the replay, I was like, oh boy, that's a penalty. But then, like I say,
this is because you were ribbing him so much in there, going against him, that I stuck with you, ribbing him, and not listened to what you said after it.
It's just fun to wind Stevie up. That's all it is. So I'm in agreement here. I think it was a penalty.
Yeah, well, we know what you think.
Aye.
Naden was pondering it. Obviously, it is Manchester United, current and ex-Manchester United players that we're hearing from here.
Yeah, it was interesting that the 4 people or 5 that spoke have all been paid quite well from Man United and seemed very disgruntled with the result and the outcome. So yeah, maybe it's not the most neutral of takes on it, but you know, if I was a United fan, you'd obviously say it's a penalty, but only because it leads to a goal down the other end. I think without the contact, with a penalty down the other end, without that, or goal rather, if that wasn't the case, then I don't think it's seen as such a big thing in my mind. Because Shaka actually made a good point, even though he was arguing against himself during the show, that Ahmad twists in a really weird way. And I think that's why the referee's probably not bought it. He's probably seen the contact, said it's not enough. And I think some of those United players that, you know, were around it, you know, they've maybe seen the replay and said, oh, it's definitely a penalty. But in real time, they saw what the referee saw and nobody was appealing beyond Ahmad himself.
For Naden, if Pep leaves at the end of the season, who would you pick as manager for Man City? I don't need to give my opinion on this. I've done Thomas today. Naden.
Okay. Best case scenario for me, which won't happen, will be like a Vincent Kompany, but I don't think it'll happen because the job he's doing at Bayern is so good that they'll probably try and tie him down. And you know, somebody, I think he's like going to be 41 years old this year. He's got plenty of time to potentially get that Man City job. But I think if I was to do something maybe a bit different, because the pressure is obviously going to be there in terms of, say, what City strive to be, maybe look at somebody like a Cesc Fabregas. I like the idea of that. I think the job that he's doing at Como is going very much, not necessarily fully under the radar, but he's doing Italian football in a very different way. And I think he's finding real success with it. So I think that type of mind with the potential sort of like team that City have here, maybe it could be like the same way Vincent Kompany did a great job at Bayern. I think a younger mind in some ways could probably unlock this team and make them, you know, modernised and ready for the next 5 or 10 years as well.
You know, Como have not gone under the power rankings radar.
Yes.
Shaka made a special exception for them yesterday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some fine work, if I may say so myself.
Even Stevie said that it was fine work. For all, thoughts on the AFCON 2026 situation? How crazy is this? Naden?
Okay, I will begin. I didn't know the extra time was 3 months. That's the first port of call. I also didn't remember seeing the Brahim Diaz Panenka go in to make it 3-0. I don't remember that. And in some ways, like, it's obviously a really wild situation in terms of how the game sort of had that pause. Not necessarily how the game ended, but how the game had that pause. Because when it comes down to it, when they came back on the pitch, Brahim Diaz still had a penalty to win the whole competition for his side. It wasn't as if the game was abandoned, and from there, I think they played extra time, did they not? So the fact that they were able to get the game to conclude in a footballing manner, but then still months down the line decided to change the outcome, I think the time of it's taken too long. If they were to make that decision, they need to make it on the day. From when Senegal walked off the pitch, forfeit the game then as a consequence, people can have their issues, but say this is the law, this is how it's going to be. But for it to be taking this long to get to this outcome when most people probably didn't even realise there was an appeal or this process in play, I think in some ways it's embarrassing. I think the game itself was tricky beforehand. I think this just makes it even worse, and I don't know how many people outside of, say, maybe the Moroccans, will be in a position to say, well, yeah, that's the right outcome because of the way that it's been brought forward.
Jack?
So I don't want to say my opinion, but my view of this has changed a lot over the last few days since the announcement of the court, what the judge said, etc., etc. My initial reaction was one of somewhere between disbelief and anger. Like that's not how games are won. In the time since, I've just kind of calmed down. I've not felt as strongly about it, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, I am almost certain it will go to CAS, and CAS will overturn the court findings. And I say that with confidence for a couple of reasons. This happened, I think it was in '71. Morocco won the Africa Cup of Nations after there was some. I think they walked off the pitch and came back on and won it, and that result upheld. It was never challenged in court, but that result upheld, even though they walked off the pitch and stayed off the pitch. As recently as I think it was either 2022 or 2023, in the CAF Champions League, a Moroccan team, they're involved again, and a Tunisian team, again, the Moroccan club team walked off, stayed off the field for an hour. I said they were not coming back on the park. So the referee awarded the game to a Tunisian club team. It was challenged in court. CAF said the game had to be replayed. That was appealed to CAS, and CAS said no. The result on the day stood. The referee, because the Moroccan team name slipped me, because the Moroccan team stayed off the park and refused to come back on, the referee awarded it to the Tunisian team. That result stood. So there's history to this. So again, when it first came out, I was like, I cannot believe this is the most ridiculous thing I was kind of buying into this looks it looks awful for the tournament. It looks awful for CAF. And the more I thought about it, I'm certain it'll be overturned. I just thought it looked awful for Morocco. As a player, as much as Brahim Diaz was celebrating on the bench for Real Madrid when the announcement was made, you don't want to win a game you don't want to win a tournament like this. As a fan, you do not want to win a tournament like this. As neutrals, we've moved on. So the only people who are getting anything from this is a very small minority of Moroccan fans, and that will be snatched away from them anyway. So I've just kind of like, listen, this is just all semantics. There's history to this. We know how, we've seen this movie a couple of times. We know how it's going to end. Let's not pretend it's anything else. As far as I'm concerned, till the end of time, Senegal will be the Africa Cup of Nations champions for 2026.
Yeah, and I'm sure Stevie echoes that sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
We won't go on. Nadim, who was the most fun manager you ever played for? I'll ask you all this.
The most fun in a non-footballing way was probably Ian Holloway. He was somebody that was always like singing, dancing, he was always trying to lift the spirits. So yeah, he was definitely the most fun, and it would come at the most like random times, like times when he's dancing at the front of the bus as we're arriving into a stadium and stuff like that. So I think I'd probably say he was the most fun. He could be serious as well, but in terms of light-hearted jokes and general behaviours, because he always had a story to tell. So yeah, I'd say Ian Holloway when I was at QPR.
Stevie?
Probably Big Ron Atkinson. Just when he came into Sheffield Wednesday when we were in relegation trouble. And I was, initially I was a little shocked. He was so upbeat, he had a smile on his face, he was joking around. Training was fun. I was like, what's going on here? We're in relegation trouble. But it absolutely worked. It lifted a load off all the players. And that wasn't just training, that was game days, and he'd just walk in and he'd say to me, right, I want you to do the team talk today. Talk about Liverpool. We were playing Liverpool. We went, talk about Liverpool. So I went, really? He went, oh, on you go. We went, all right. So then I would do the team talk. I mean, you just throw things like that from nowhere. And everybody had a smile on their face, and we stayed up.
Nice.
Great. Yeah.
A lot of the players that you talk to who played under Stevie say that Stevie was the most fun manager that played under.
I'd love to play under Stevie.
Vouch for that.
Paul and I had a few laughs.
Jack?
Well, Harry Redknapp for me. And I'll say, while I played for Harry, both West Ham and Portsmouth, I'm going to lean Portsmouth because he brought Jim Smith, may he rest in peace, as his assistant. And talk about two old school managers in every sense of the word. And it was just so much fun. Jim was so relaxed. He was, for his history in the game, just came in and was just all about fun, all about, you know, he would coach and would point in the right direction, but he knew he wasn't the head man, so he could just, you know, he could just relax and have fun with it. It was a fantastic time, and again, we were really successful.
Was Jim still on the big cigar wall?
Yes,
the big cigars.
We win a game, cigar on the team bus, the biggest glass of red wine you've ever seen. Absolutely fantastic.
Nadim, did you want to add something?
Hey, I've got to say, I did, yeah, it's funny how things change because Shaka and I did share Harry Redknapp as a coach, and Harry Redknapp, for me at QPR, was quite possibly, just at that time at QPR, one of the most miserable people I'd ever seen in all my life. So clearly, Shaka, you took all the joy away from him in the early 2000s because he had no joy being with us.
Boy.
When
Maybe
he first
just
came
like
in, he was
Shaka
looking
more
on the
than you,
sideline like
Nadim.
he was on community service.
That's what it is.
Well, that's me, that's every other player, that's all the staff as well, by the way. But he used to stand on the sideline, like, just at the start, literally like it was community service. He'd just be standing there shaking his head like, oh my God, why am I here? So yeah, I didn't quite get the same level of fun that you had, Shaka, unfortunately.
Earlier, Nadim was saying, in 16 years, he played under 14 managers. I think that tells its own story. That tells its own story. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I
Moving
agree.
on.
Cannot be those allegations.
Okay. For the panel, today is National Proposal Day. Did any of you do anything interesting for your proposals to your wives? Was it in front of others or just the two of you? Nadim?
We got engaged in Paris, just off the Champs-Elysees, in a hotel called Fouquet Barrière. That was nice. Asked her in French. She said, what are you talking about? I said, what kind of says will you marry me? So you decide if that's interesting or not. So yeah, that was my proposal story.
Oh, you guys are childhood sweethearts, right, Nadim?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. Oh, God, I don't know who will go to first. Oh, go on, Shaka. Go on, I'll leave him alone.
Don't even ask me.
The short answer for me is no, I did nothing special.
No.
I proposed in Trinidad. We were in Trinidad on holiday at the end, between seasons. I didn't even go down on one knee, which still my wife brings up every now and then. So the short answer to that is no. I wish I could have a redo.
Yeah, she does too.
Dan today.
I thought Dan
is
was
on
back.
fire today. Oh boy.
She's trying to get out of it.
No, nothing
Oh
romantic.
boy.
I was sat across the other side of the table.
You want to get married?
I was sad.
Just shouted over.
That's why you
"We're
married."
married sometime.
Pretty much.
We do it Saturday.
I'd had a few at the time, so I mean, I don't take every single word I say as the
Okay.
because I can't really remember that much about it. But it was not romantic, I can assure you.
What year was it?
82.
Don't look at me.
Oh, look at you. I think it was 82. Aye. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I got married in the summer of 82. There you go.
And
That
so
must have been-
that's when you
That was
proposed?
quick.
So you proposed in 82 and got married straight
Yeah.
away?
Yeah, pretty much.
Love that. Well, okay, Nadim, you win. All right, that will do it for the
By a
latest edition.
By a
By a mile.
By an absolute landslide.
French.
Okay. ESPN FC available tomorrow. Make sure to join us then.
It sounded French with the amount of beer I had.